Your friends are not professional actors or improv comedians. Welcome to the Twisted Pint Tavern. Today we're visiting r/D&D to answer, what are the 3 most valuable DM lessons? Session 0 is important because everyone should feel safe and respected. Players want to play and not listen to you describe for hours. It's okay to be insecure and communicate that. If that happens, don't react hastily. Take your time and/or ask about it. Full agree so far, except on the players wanting to play and not listen to you describe. Sometimes people really like that immersion, but if your group tends to kind of zone out when you're describing things, yeah, just cuts the dice rolling. Be prepared for everything you've planned to be blown away in a few seconds. Don't form an attachment to your bad guys because your players may destroy them instantly, and don't limit what your players can do, but also don't be afraid to tell them no. The game is about everyone at the table, not any one person. And lastly, for the spiciness of the game, here's the 4th lesson: roll behind your screen every so often. Chuckle, pretend to write something down, then look around innocently. There's this reply, I love your last tip. I actually do that sometimes when my players are in danger of getting into an endless discussion. It's a simple, and in my opinion, elegant way to prevent that. If that still doesn't help, I sometimes ask one of my players about their passive perception. On the don't form an attachment to your bad guys because your players may destroy them instantly thing, yeah, that's something you really only learn when it happens the first time, and the second time, and the third time, and the 4th time, and the 5th time. Don't fudge rolls because you're afraid to kill your players' characters. The danger of character death is exciting for both DMs and players, and fudging rolls in favor of the players can trivialize combat. Skip stuff that's not interesting for the story, like travel and shopping. Sometimes things just don't need to be played out. Just give a quick description and move on to the good parts of the adventure. Take breaks and eat or snack. I often get so caught up in DMing, I just forgot to do these things. Not technically a DM lesson, but this made my session so much more enjoyable for me. Absolutely take breaks. I usually run about a 15 to 20 minute intermission at least in the midway point of the night, but you can do more, and I sometimes do. I mean, bathroom breaks, snack breaks, phone calls, things like that. It comes up, and if you have an actual intermission point, it feels a lot better to the people at the table. As for the skipping things that aren't interesting to the story, like travel and shopping, that one I disagree on. Again, if everyone at your table does not care, then just skip it. But to me, in my games, travel is part of the adventure. How you get from one side of the mountain range to the other can be 3 sessions, not just because it's drug out, but because you'll find things along the way, you'll learn stuff, and I make it part of the game. That, to me, is how you should do travel. And as for shopping, and people not liking that, I mean, you really should just sit at my table one day, because my players, if I tell them we're having a shopping special, they get so excited, and we will roleplay every single purchase they make. It is ridiculous and a ton of fun. This is a standalone lesson, but an important one. Your friends are not professional actors or improv comedians. There are exceptions to this, but a lot of people watch things like Dimension 20 and Critical Role, and then they expect their players to be just as quick fire on things as the players in those games, and that's a lot of stress to put on the players and even flip it around on the DM, because sometimes people who are really good at improving and acting things out, and sometimes they're not, and you need to make sure you're not excluding those that aren't as quick fire. 5 players max makes it more overwhelming for the DM and boring for the players. Take your time to improvise. Call a 5-minute bathroom break when you need to think. Throw the player characters into seemingly difficult or unsolvable solutions. They will find a solution and have fun doing so, and they'll feel extremely smart. I think it was actually mentioned in one of my prior videos, but don't be afraid to throw your players in situations that you don't know how they're gonna get out of. If you can't think of a way for them to escape it or solve this puzzle, that doesn't mean you shouldn't necessarily throw it at them. Don't throw them a ton of impossible things. But there's a lot more players at the table than there are DMs, and so the players working together can typically find a solution that you may like or have not thought of as the DM. Speaking of difficult solutions, Waldore the Tavern Mimic is still floating around the tavern waiting to be found. He's been hiding in videos throughout April, and today's video is the last one for you to find him. He'll pop up somewhere in the video for a little bit, then disappear, now never to be seen again. Or at least in this competition, who knows when that rascal will pop up again. If you find him, screenshot him and post him in the Where's Waldore Discord channel, and the first person to do that will get a point. The top 3 scorers at the end of the month will receive the Mimic Hunter Discord role. Oh, and just for a little extra spice, Waldore will be hidden somewhere on the channel until the end of the month as well. Not in this video, but somewhere else that you can see on the channel page. The first person to find him there will get a point as well. Good luck, Mimic Hunters. 1. Learn when and how to cutscene. Think Mortal Kombat. The player has input the finisher combo correctly. The DM then cutscenes the gore to whatever ESRB rating the group is cool with. 2. Give your NPCs motives. It makes them feel more fleshed out. I give all NPCs 2 major characteristics, like the general store owner is a known drunk and terrible gambler. It gives my players something to do other than just buy things. 3. Not every fight needs to end in the death of enemies. Think Shadows of Mordor Orc Advancement. A local bandit that got away may team up with a bigger group and will most likely carry a grudge. Now your world feels like a living thing where actions have unintended consequences. These are all great tips, and about learning when and how to cutscene, it can be really cool if you give your players that cutscene freedom to describe how their spell wreathes around the enemy and saps their life out, or however else they want to flavor it. Really brings them into the immersion in combat. You're not playing to win, you're there to facilitate challenges for your players to overcome. Too many new DMs throw adversity at their players like they're playing to win money. Your players are supposed to overcome your challenges, but just barely. Accept that a large percentage of your cool ideas are not going to be touched. You can't avoid it. Just accept it and hope you can recycle it for another campaign. Players will do anything in their power to make you voice a silly character. Anyone who speaks with animals or plants is going to have fun with you. And you should have fun with them. If you don't give the tiny little mushroom a squeaky high-pitched voice, if you can manage it, then, what are you doing? That's a great opportunity. And also, the just barely succeeding on the challenges is the best place to be. You want them to win. Just barely eking by, that's where the fun is. Give players a very clear idea of what type of campaign and setting they're playing. You're setting everyone up for disappointment if they think they're getting the Princess Bride and you run them through a Game of Thrones. You have the final say should there be a rules issue. You can be as hard or as flexible as you want, so long as you're fair. The rulebooks are guidelines, not laws. Don't be afraid to wing it. Things will happen that you could not have planned for. Learning to roll with the punches is always better than attempting a hard course correction. Absolutely, you have to learn how to roll with the punches, and if you're getting into it fresh and you're not the best improver, that's fine. You'll learn as you go, and just tell your players, hey guys, I'm new to this. I'm gonna be a little rough, but as we go along, I'll probably get better. Plan situations, not solutions. If you put a mile-wide river as an obstacle for the players, don't think about how they're gonna bypass it. It's the player's job. Whatever solution they come up with will not be what you had in mind, so planning for solutions is a wasted effort. You only need to prepare for the next session, not the next 5. I struggle with that one. If you over-prep, you risk burning yourself out and also risk doing unnecessary work when the party decides to go a completely unexpected direction or there's an unexpected TPK. Combat becomes more fun if you learn to not care about how challenging it is or isn't. This last one is probably the most difficult one to internalize and accept, but it has really helped me with 2 things, and might help someone with the 3rd point, though that has never been a problem for me. Not to worry if I kill a PC, or multiple. Not to get frustrated if the party just obliterates a boss or other tough encounter, and you won't feel the need to fudge any rolls. I think there should be a degree of challenge balancing, but it's so hard to do that you really do need to just kind of let it go. You throw a loose battle plan together, try to keep certain things in mind, and then just let the players tear it apart, or let it tear the players apart. I could probably make an entire video on my own DM advice, but for the sake of this video, I'll just narrow it down to the 3. 1, everyone is there to have a good time, the DM included. If something isn't clicking for you or one of the players, it's your job to dive into it and make sure everyone's enjoying themselves. This is a game, not a punishment. Usually. 2, no matter how much you plan to not have a plan. It's always best to go into a session with a loose structure in mind, key NPCs, some potential dialogue, etc. However, don't get upset if the players completely skip some or all of your plan, and do not railroad them back onto it. You can easily snip and move pieces behind the scenes, but if you say, "And the king who summoned you leaves his palace to find you in the streets and deliver this long piece of dialogue," the players will feel like their agency is limited or outright gone. You can have a plan, but ultimately build the bones ahead of time and worry about the fine details as you go. And 3, a lot of people seem to struggle with detailing scenes and explaining things in an immersive, yet well-worded and short way. My biggest tip for this, use 3 senses. Out of the 5, pick 3 and explain how those senses tie into the scenario. A dungeon corridor could be dark and abandoned, with dust coating the crevices in the stone, for sight. The faint smell of mold and decay coming from deeper in, smell, and a light yet consistent drip of water echoing from the corner of the room, sound. You can use any combo of senses, but more than 3 can start to seem like you're rambling on, though not always, and less than 3 doesn't quite trigger that immersion in my experience. Anyway, that's going to wrap up today's video. Now that we've heard Reddit's opinion, what's yours? Let us know down in the comments, or even better, in our Twisted Pint Tavern Discord server. We already have 30 plus members and we want to thank everyone for joining. The link is in the description. Also, here, take this. Go ahead and oil the hinges on the door for me. They're getting really squeaky.